All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock, or a couple of minutes after, and we always start on time. So if you would stand for the invocation, please. Lord God Almighty, you certainly did give us a wonderful show this afternoon with all the rain and the hail and the wind. In some cases it was very glorious, but we are concerned, Lord, for those people that live beyond the burn scar where the storm went after Payson. And we ask you to protect all of those people that were out when the flash floods went across the washes, Lord, that no one was caught and possibly drowned. We ask you, Lord, that you would bless us with renewed growth after our bit of a drought here, and that the fire season would be squelched, at least here in our surrounding area. Lord, we lift up our speaker tonight, Hal, as he presents to us his experience in California. And Lord, we just ask you to bless each and every one of us here, that we may take the information that we garner at our meetings and share it with others. So we ask you to watch over us all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, and the flag is right behind me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Aha! I found what I was looking for right away. Okay, our speaker tonight is Hal Bray. He is an escapee from the asylum of California about 18 months ago, so he's been there way more currently than some of us who have been here for 15 years escaped from the asylum. So, he says, our culture is the foundation of our society, and what you have in culture is what you get in politics. Our culture is in turmoil. Why would we expect anything different than what we are getting in our politics or in government? But we have moved beyond just a culture war. It was in a civil war, 57 sexual identities, drag queen reading hour, trigger warnings, elimination of male and female pronouns, doxing enemies, rioting and looting in the streets, statues of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Christopher Columbus, and others being ripped from the public square, the demand to defund police, and other acts that we did not forecast or fight off are now upon us. What is happening? How do we reverse current trends? And do you want to reverse the current trends? Hal Bray is a precinct committeeman and current chair of the Yavapai County Republican Party Finance Committee. As a young man, he worked in California prison system for 10 years, including a stint as a parole agent in South Central LA, aka Watts. Hal worked in men's and women's prisons and drug programs. Mr. Bray then made an abrupt career change, entering sales career at AT&T. Selling to large government and educational customers. He retired as a sales director after 25 years. Upon retirement, he became active in Republican politics in California. There are some, where he was vice chairman of his county Republican Party and member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. As you can see, he's not black. And the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. He also was active in his local taxpayer group and was a board member for a pro-life organization. Hal moved to Prescott 18 months ago. So welcome, Hal Bray. Now, do you want this mounted here, or?
No, I'll hold it.
Okay.
All right. for inviting me up tonight. I enjoy doing this because the world is getting stranger and stranger and stranger as we move on. So I was going to start with a question tonight, and you can tell from what you've heard so far that it is getting stranger. So I have two questions. According to the FBI in 2019, how many black men were shot and killed by the police? So anybody?
14.
Huh? 14. Yeah, it's close. Actually, you're closer than anybody has ever come. It's 8. So how many white men were shot and killed by the police? 13, right. So when we talk about genocide and black genocide, you'll notice that nobody ever gives you a number, right? Nobody ever says anything, so they don't believe in facts, and that helps them become kind of crazy. So I have several handouts in the back if you're interested. One is the framework for math in the Seattle Public Schools. And math in the Seattle Public Schools is now taught under ethnic studies. And the concept there is that 2 + 2 may not equal 4. It depends upon which ethnic group tells you what the answer is. Okay, so the whole criteria is within ethnic studies. Secondly, there's a handout that was put up on the web by the Smithsonian Institution, the Museum of African American Studies, and it's what's wrong with white culture. And what's wrong with white culture is that we are rugged individuals, we believe in the family structure, we have an emphasis on the scientific method, we like history, we think we learn from history, we believe in the Protestant ethic, and so forth and so on. So the day they put this up, there was such a complaint they took it back down again. So anyway, that's a handout. Third thing back there, and you're going to be really surprised, but did you know that putting a period at the end of a sentence is racist? And that our young people today think that you should not put a period there, nor should you use grammar the way we do. So that if you do that, it's white supremacy and it's shouting at them. So you should not do that. So those are handouts back there. So where am I pointing this?
Point back here. Oh,
Okay. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. Values, culture, and politics, because I'm a big believer that our values are being lost, that our culture has changed, and as a result, that's where we're getting in our politics. So here's your first expression of the culture and the change in the values. So this is a trigger warning, okay? You know, our kids need a trigger warning before they actually read anything. They can't read Mark Twain because it may upset them. So they need to have a trigger warning before they do that. Behind the trigger warning are the 9 hate groups that I belong to. These are considered hate groups that I belong to, and I'm very proud to belong to these different hate groups. See my name, Hal Bray. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, and this is my presentation.
Before you go on, what's cisgender?
I'm sorry.
Sex is the last word before male. What's cisgender?
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 Okay, so I am proud to be a cisgendered man. A cisgendered man is somebody stupid enough to think that there are men and women, and stupid enough not to wear women's clothes when I want to wear them. That I don't enjoy the 57 different sexual identities that we think there are. So there's cisgendered men and cisgendered women. So I'm pretty sure most of us are cisgendered.
Just say heterosexual? Can we just stay with heterosexual?
I'm sorry.
Can we stay with heterosexual instead of the
All right. So, okay, background. So this is my background, and part of what I like to do is I tell little stories as I go along. So I retired from AT&T. I was the sales director for government and education, and as you know, one of the things I did in that role when the Democratic National Committee held their convention in Los Angeles, it was my job to meet with them to see what their technical requirements were. And I lasted one meeting. I walked in, we started the meeting, and they said, well, it's very nice of you to be here, but you can't be our contact. And I said, why? And they said, well, because you're a white male. What we need is a disabled Hispanic woman for our contact. And it would be best if she was in a wheelchair, because it works better in our advertising, okay? So that was my contact with the Democratic National Committee. Before working for AT&T, I did work in several men's prisons and women's prisons and some drug programs. And that's when I first started noticing how the culture was changing, okay? So, two stories. The first, I was the watch commander for a women's prison, which meant I was responsible for the safety and security of everybody there. So one night we were getting ready to do the 5 o'clock count, a body count. And I got a call from what's called receiving and release that LA County had brought in a bunch of new women to be processed into the prison. And as we were getting ready to make the count, I got a call from one of my sergeants who said, Lieutenant Bray, we have a problem down here. I said, Danny, what's the problem? He said, well, we just got a woman from LA County with a penis. And we don't actually know what to do with her. What should we do with her? This was 1985. So what I'm saying is that some of these things have been going on for quite a while. A couple of years later, I was working as a parole agent in Watts. And my boss used to come in once a month and say, Hal, you're white. You can't hide out there. Please don't get killed. I said, okay, we'll be very careful. So one day, I'm sitting in a car. It's an undercover police car, and you know how those are. You all know it's a police car, right? I'm sitting there, and I see what looks like a 4 or 5-year-old little girl walking towards the car. And so I put the window down on the passenger side. She walks up and pulls herself up so she can see in the window, and she says, F you, pig, at 7 o'clock in the morning, okay? 4 years old, she knew exactly who I was. And she told me right there. Okay, so then after retirement in California, I was the acting chair of the Contra Costa Republican Party, and we joined the NAACP. Our thing was to reach out to the NAACP and to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and it was a very, very interesting experience. I was also a member of a taxpayer group and on the board of a pro-life group, which was very nice also. Okay, this is where I believe we are right now. See, I don't believe we're actually, it's not political. I believe we're in a second civil war. I think we're already there, and this is one of my favorite quotes. Guns are how a civil war ends. Politics is how it begins, and I think that's how it has begun this time. The last bullet on this page is a group called the Transition Integrity Project. You guys familiar with this group? This is a relatively new group.
Transition.
Yeah, this is a group put together by the Clintons, John Podesta, other Democrats, and a group of never-Trumpers. And they've been wargaming how to keep Donald Trump from assuming the presidency the second time. That's how to stop him if he wins, and how to stop him, and how to get rid of him if he loses and refuses to leave office. So they're a very serious group of people with a lot of money, by the way. Everybody familiar with Act Blue? You know Act Blue? It's a fundraising group founded by Barack Obama. They've raised $1.3 billion. They're pouring money into Arizona. They're giving money to our local candidates. Very serious right now. Okay. Values, culture, and politics. Values are our principles or standards of behavior. Culture is how that accumulates into the culture. And what you get there is what you get in politics. So if everybody smokes weed and you have a ballot measure to approve recreational marijuana, you're probably not going to defeat that. So culture dictates politics. Next. Okay, politics, according to Charles Krauthammer, here we're going to... Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Is this the right spot for you? Oh.
Okay, we're right here. So according to Charles Krauthammer, politics dominates everything in our life. Everything in our life, everything you do. The food you eat, who you have sex with, who you live with, whatever. Politics dominates everything in our life. But culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you have a strategy for how you're going to win a campaign, the culture is going to dominate every single thing you do, and it's going to be very difficult to beat that. Okay, next slide. Oh, this is very small. I don't know if you guys can see this. These are examples of today's culture. So you'll see at the top, a cisgender man. Some other things. Does anybody know what OK Boomer means? Okay, OK Boomer came about during Brexit, and it's the first part of a statement. So it goes like this. OK Boomer, you told us your opinion, now go die. We don't want your opinion anymore. Okay, we want our way.
That baby boomer?
Baby boomers, right, for baby boomers, that's, so hey, great, you may think this is great, but, we think differently and we want to live our lives. Is anybody named Karen? Karen is a derogatory term for a white middle-class woman. So if somebody calls you a Karen, she's calling you a stupid white middle-class woman, because all white middle-class women are stupid. So Karen is the current cultural term. If you're white adjacent, that means you may be a person of color, but you have white friends, so you're pretty stupid anyway. Okay? Drag queen reading hour. I'll tell you what hit me about drag queen reading hour. Before I left California, my city had a drag queen reading hour in the public library. These are drag queens who come to the library and they read. And the reading is targeted at 3 to 6-year-olds. Not targeted at adults. It's targeted at children. But what hit me being there that night is that 3 to 6-year-olds can't drive. Right? So the parents had to bring them. So we have all these 25, 30, 35-year-old people bringing their 5-year-old kids to celebrate being a drag queen.
What's the drag queen reading?
Pardon me?
What are they reading to these kids?
They have a series of books. This is actually, it's an organization and they do it all over the country. and they read books that are a celebration of being a drag queen. And at the one that was in my library, there were hundreds of people there. Hundreds of people there. You know, we had a protest set up with the local Catholic Church. Standing behind us was a couple of Antifa guys. Standing behind the Antifa guys was every policeman in the city. And nothing happened, but this event was a big event in the city.
What city was it?
City of Brentwood in Northern California. We talk about college today. Here's one of the things that bugs me about college today. You and I pay taxes. We send our kids to go to school. And you can't flunk out of college today. I don't know if you know that, but you just cannot. Like we have a friend who got a degree in me. You can design your own program. So we designed a program called Me, and his degree says he got a degree in me. But what bothers me about college today is, you know, I took a look at the ethnic studies program of the colleges in my community in California, and you can earn a degree in ethnic studies without hardly going to class.
Just pay 'em.
Damn. Now, well, what you do is you can do field studies. So what are field studies? Field studies are walking precincts for Democratic candidates, right? So we pay taxes to send them to school to get a degree to get rid of us, right? This is what we're doing. This is part of what's going on. And of course, the bottom thing on this chart is the cancel culture, which we're now seeing. Are you aware of the 1619 project? We're probably all aware of that. Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is the approved genders for the University of California. You can't use he and she anymore. This is the approved genders, started at UC Davis, and then moved to the other universities. There's actually a law in California now that if somebody wants to be called by one of these pronouns, and you call them he or she, you're liable for a $10,000 fine or 6 months in jail. You have to follow the gender identification.
That's a California law.
Yeah. Next. Okay, I'll give you a second to read this. On Monday, Washington Governor Jay Inslee, a Democrat, appointed Grace Whitner to the state Supreme Court. Whitner is a disabled black lesbian who immigrated from Trinidad. She joins Inslee's two other appointees, Raquel Montoya Lewis, a Jewish Native American who previously served on tribal courts, and Mary Yu, an Asian American Latina lesbian who officiated the first same-sex marriage in the state. And the question is, yeah, but where did she go to law school? You know, what are their legal background? You know, why are they qualified to be on the court? But this is where we are as a culture today. And this is why the ballot measures that get approved, get approved. All right, next. So I mentioned earlier that I joined the NAACP and was a member for several years, and I was a member of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. But the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a business group, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. I had a great time. We were a great group of people. The NAACP is a racial group. We invited them as a Republican Party. We invited them to come to our meetings. We would go to their meetings. The first time we met, this is what they said. We share some of the same concerns. The concerns we shared were they believed in the Second Amendment, they were anti-abortion, and they didn't like living in dangerous neighborhoods. Those were their three concerns. They said, we believe that we can come together on some of these things. And we said, yeah, we think we can too. Okay, the only problem was we could always agree on the problem. We could never agree on the solution. Because our solution was always a business solution or a market-based solution. Their solution was a government solution, always. Junior Achievement Workshop. It's an experience where I propose that we do a Junior Achievement Workshop for young people graduating from high school on how to transition to college. We needed a place to teach it, so we went to the local Catholic church. And so I met with the parish council, and they were a little surprised when the NAACP guy walked in and he was white. And they said, so you're from the NAACP? I said, well, I'm from the Republican Party, and we're working with the NAACP. And they said, well, that can't be because Republicans don't do these kinds of things. They just don't do things like this. And I said, no, we are the most conservative. As conservatives, we give back to the community more than liberals. And they said, okay, would you leave the room for a few minutes? So I left the room. They called me back in and they said, okay, we're going to grant you to use our classroom. You can use our classroom, but under one condition. You can never say the words of Republican Party. You can say NAACP, anything else that you want to do, but you cannot put in anything you publish or write or say that you're from the Republican Party. So see, this is why we're not known in the community. People don't see us in the community. Okay? Crisis Magazine. Crisis Magazine was founded in 1910. It's still called Crisis Magazine. 1910, they believed they had a crisis, and the black people. By the way, I don't know because I didn't say this. The NAACP was founded by 9 white Republican attorneys working with several black activists. So at that time, the Democratic Party formed the Ku Klux Klan, and the Republican Party was the party of civil rights. And that has all been turned around ever since 1964. But Crisis Magazine is called Crisis Magazine. It's not called Opportunity or Achieve or anything else like it. It is called Crisis. They still believe, and it's in their vested interest to create a crisis. I mean, Black Lives Matter has been given $220 million by George Soros. Okay? From the riots, they get a ton of money. They'll never get over the crisis part. Now, the NAACP does not believe that you should have an ID to vote. But when I voted for their board of directors, I had to produce an ID. To go to their meeting, I had to produce an ID. To do anything with them, you had to produce an ID. But they don't believe in it for voting. And finally, well, the next 2 things, the national anthem. First time I was at a meeting and they said, stand for the national anthem. We didn't recognize the song. The song was Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is called the Negro National Anthem. The song was actually written to celebrate Abraham Lincoln and was turned into the Negro, not the black, the Negro National Anthem. The last bullet on here is kind of the most important. You know, at that dinner, when we left, the leader of the black community in our community followed us out to the parking lot. She didn't talk to us in the meeting, but she followed us into the parking lot where she walked by and she said, where the hell have you people been? You have left me here alone by myself for 25 years. And then she just walked on. And so it's been my belief that part of our job is if we want people to vote for us, we have to talk with them, we have to meet with them, we have to make them a part of our community. Next. Okay, we're not in a political fight. We're in a cultural fight, which has turned into a civil war. Right now, George Soros, Tom Steyer, Mike Bloomberg are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into defeating us through Act Blue and other programs. They have I'm sorry. They have a local strategy of we're going to win every district attorney office in the country. And we're going to win every Secretary of State office in the country because it's the district attorney that prosecutes people. It's the Secretary of State and the election department that count all the ballots. So Lenin said, it's not who votes that counts, it's he who counts the votes that counts. Okay, so across the country, and this mail-in ballot this time will be really horrible. And they're prepared to take it as far as they can. Saul Alinsky, if you read Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky said the project is not the project, the revolution is the project. So, you know, we don't fight Kavanaugh to defeat Kavanaugh. We fight Kavanaugh to defeat Trump, to defeat the Republicans, and to transform the country. In his book, he says it is moral to do anything illegal, unethical, or immoral as long as you win. If you lose, the only thing that's wrong is losing. But always clothe it with moral garments. So everything you see them do is going to take it to that point. They will go to the farthest and worst thing they can do to win. Next. All right. The difference between Democrats and Republicans today is that Republicans think it's still 1955. We're still, we believe in small government. We think things are good, and we're going to improve those things that are bad. And there's an election year and an off election year, off election year. Democrats believe there's no off year. They work 365 days a year, every year. Go to any public meeting, and for example, in California, when we did redistricting of the districts, the political districts, if you went to a meeting, there would be 400 people in the room, and 350 of them would be Democrats, and 50 would be Republicans. So they work, and this is, I think, something we inherited from Barack Obama. They work constantly to transform the country. Next. Talking with idiot Democrats. God, this typing is way too small. Calling them names won't work. You know, you can't call them names, you can, okay? Fact versus feelings. We talk facts. They talk feelings. Listen to Bill Clinton, I feel your pain. I said earlier, they never tell you how many black men have been killed by police because they don't care. They tell you the emotional part of it. My wife likes the letters to the editor that I write because they're factual. I back everything I say with some facts. They don't care about the facts. Reason and now silence. This is the new one. If you don't say anything, that means you're racist. So if you defend yourself, you're racist. If you don't say anything, you're racist. The next one up there, my son and I argue about this all the time. So my son has got a PhD in American history, taught at UCLA, and when he was there, they were getting rid of their Civil War classes and replacing them with queer history. Okay, so again, another part of the culture change. You cannot reason with people. You cannot reason people out of something that they weren't reasoned into.
That's true.
You can have an argument with them all you want. Okay, next one. From AOC, I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right. You can't give them a fact that means anything to them because they feel they're morally right. And we thought Joe Biden made a mistake when he said this. We choose truth over facts. That's what they believe. We have the truth. The 1619 Project says America didn't start in 1776. It started in 1619 with the arrival of the first slave ship. And they've made up all their own facts. And that's becoming the curriculum in our high schools. Next. So how do we deal with the culture? So I like Cheryl Sanders. I actually haven't read the book, but I love the title, Lean In. She said women don't do well in business because they never learn to lean in. They never learn to fight. They just never learn to get into a meeting and lean in and fight. The one that I've always loved is you have to run into the fire, not away from it. You have to go to NAACP meetings. You have to go to the Indivisibles meetings. You have to fight. And John Wayne, courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. I mean, and I think that's what I like the most about Donald Trump. I think he just fights when every other Republican. I mean, I think the Republicans are half the problem in the country right now. I think they give up on everything. So Hillary Clinton's running mate was Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine got up in the Senate and said, America invented slavery. No Republicans got up and said, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. Nobody fought that. We don't fight back. We give things away. And that's, again, what I like about Donald Trump. I like that about Turning Point. You guys familiar with Turning Point? Love Turning Point. Love watching Tucker every night. Senator Josh Hawley, and you know, Dwight and Andrea, KR. Love them, love them. It's a fight. Next. Oh, I gotta change these slides. Okay. So I did say, I'm just about done here. I did say that I was the finance director of the Yavapai County Republican Party. TNT is our fundraising arm. Anybody wants to join TNT, you can join for as little as $5 a month or as much as $5,000 a year. You can talk to me about becoming a TNT member. On October 23rd, we're having the Lincoln Reagan dinner in Prescott. It's $80 a ticket. We've got a great show to put on that night, and it's really good. And by the way, I forgot one thing. I'm going to tell you a story about my son. So he lives in a small town in Southern California. And he noticed one day in the paper that the mayor announced that the queen of this African country was in town and they were going to celebrate this queen. I told you my son has a PhD in American history. So he called the city, he said, in the city, and he said, that country doesn't exist in Africa anymore. And they never had a queen. How can you be celebrating the queen? And they got all worked up and they said, well, she says she's the queen. And he said, no, she's not the queen. So after they proved that she wasn't the queen, they began noticing other things going wrong with the city. Their budget was off. They hadn't been audited in several years. There were several other things happening. To make a long story short, he and some friends began going to the city council and protesting what they were doing. So all of a sudden, on Facebook, on Nextdoor, on Twitter, there were women, supposedly women, posting that he was a sexual predator and he was raping Latina teenagers. So we all gathered. Took a little while, but we proved that it was one person doing it rather than a group of Latina girls. The one person doing it was the mayor of that city. So She just resigned. And the DA is prosecuting her right now, or says he's prosecuting her. What will generally happen in these cases, he'll drag it out so long that everybody will forget it's going on, and then they'll drop the case. But in the meantime, she's resigned, he's been vindicated. But when I was talking about what the left will do, this is an example of what the left will do. All right, go to the final slide. Okay, this says, and this actually started in the Jewish Talmud, and it says, if not now, when, and if not you, who, okay? And I kind of think that's where we are today. If you're not angry now at where we're going as a society, you're never going to be angry. If you're not mad at what's going on in politics, you're never going to be mad at what's going on in politics until it's all gone. So what I ask you to do is stand up and fight. You walk precincts, as Shirley was talking about. Donate money to the candidates and the party that you want to donate to, and fight what's going on in our culture and in our politics. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I hope I was okay tonight. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Okay, we have a separate microphone so that people can hear the questions. Are you moving up here, John, because you have a question?
Oh, yeah, not a question, but a comment.
Okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that one of the things that I've done for quite a while now, I've spent a lot of time on the internet fighting these issues. For a while, right after I moved up here to Payson, I fought on ArizonaCentral.com. And one of the things that I discovered was that anytime you have an issue on the letters to the editor in Arizona.com, and you raise a conservative response to it, the liberal attitude, the cadre comes out of the woodwork. You have about 5 people who you assume 15 to 20 screen names, and they spend the rest of their day, every day for a week or two, calling you names and claiming you're wrong and ridiculing you. And what I have found is that if I call them on it, because they use very obscene language and the like, if I call them on it, if I point out, if I don't use the bad language myself, if I don't insult them, but just call them on their techniques, the rules for radical techniques, eventually they call in the big guy. He's the real big guy. He's the guy who really knows everything, and he really slams me. And when I disarm him, they all disappear immediately, overnight. It's a programmed situation, just like you said.
What I found when I write letters to the editor, and I write a lot of letters to the editor, and they publish about 1 out of every 4 or 5. And what I have found, not so much in Arizona, by the way, but in California, is that, and I actually refuse to hide, so my phone number's in the phone book. And that's what I find is I get voicemails, and half of them say, what a great letter you wrote. I want to thank you for writing that letter. I want to thank you for standing up and doing that. And the other half say, what an asshole you are. You are horrible, and how could you ever have those beliefs? I actually like getting both of them, but I like getting that kind of feedback. Anything else? Oh, I forgot one other thing. In prisons, who are more violent, men or women? Remember, I worked in women's prison and in men's prison. Who's more violent, men or women?
Women.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of a trick question. The answer is, it's different. In a men's prison, the men, there's less violence. It's planned. They make a weapon. They kill the guy. In the women's prison, they fight every night. The worst year of my life was being watch commander in a women's prison from 4 to midnight. I never got home because there was something going on every night. I mean, you know, they're tough to deal with. Okay.
Other questions? Jim?
I think just to listen to you speak, a lot of the points that you talk about, I'm sure you probably listened to Dennis Prager before.
Sure, love to.
Yeah, I mean, he really nails this, the left.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that there's a distinction. It's not liberalism, it's leftism.
Right.
And he said, you know, the greatest force in our society today is fear of the left.
Right.
All that grit, and it's much more so. I mean, and I like the way he points out that, you know, more than Judaism or Christianity or Islam or anything, the greatest force in the last 100 years has been leftism.
Right.
And we don't see it, but I'll go back to what he'll say a lot of times, is that, you know, if we don't have God in society, everything else falls apart. This is just a falling apart of it, and when he posts anything, and with Prager University regarding the necessity for God, or you see the Fox News things that talks about God, you know, something in a positive way. You know, a lot of things will get quite a reaction from the left. But when you talk about God, they just go ballistic.
Right.
They just go, but they can't. It's almost like, you know, the demon when Christ comes near. You know, what do you have to do? I mean, it is, to me, it's just a very parallel kind of deal. They just can't stand the fact that there's going to be an absolute right and wrong.
Right.
And you know, something that transcends human experience.
Well, the founding fathers said, you know, we're giving you a republic if you can keep it, and the Constitution was written for a religious people, and so as that goes away, it gets harder and harder to keep the Constitution.
Anybody else? Okay, here we have.
To what degree do you think sociopathy is driving this leftist, you know?
Sociopathy? You mean like the decline of...
These people are sociopaths or psychopaths. But I mean, to what degree? You know, I mean, what percentage?
Yeah.
And what percentage is just straight demonology? And, you know, there's some people that think, you know, they have, a legitimate liberal argument for some of these issues, but you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, see, I think we've gone way past what we would normally, you know, go to with the decline of the society. I think we've allowed our schools, and my wife was a first grade school teacher, so, you know, we have this discussion. I think the schools and much of our culture, it's kind of interesting. So my wife's a first grade school teacher. My daughter-in-law writes Better Call Saul. You guys watch Better Call Saul, the TV show? So my son's very conservative, his wife is very liberal. The liberal world has just gone so far past anything that we ever thought they would. And right now, that, you know, my biggest concern is freedom of speech. I think they're trying very hard to take away any kind of freedom of speech that we have. Second Amendment, yes, I'm afraid of that also, but it's the freedom of speech that they're really, really coming down on. And our society's just gone way past anything that we thought they would. And I don't think they're sociopaths. I think our kids have been brought up believing in a different set of values than we believe in. And I guess I believe our values are really good. And I think a lot of theirs are really bad. Really bad. Anyway. And we raised them. Let's remember that. We actually raised them. So.
And here's Tim.
I'm trying to badmouth California refugees.
Right, it's on. Just get up over
Okay.
here.
I don't want to badmouth California refugees, but I'm just curious, you know, some of you people are conservative, but it seems like I've been reading articles that we have a lot of liberal Californians moving into the state that seem to be shifting the balance of political power.
Right.
In this state. Have you, anything?
Well, I'm going to give you an example of somebody that I met in a restaurant, okay? So I'm in a restaurant with three other guys were having a good conversation, and a couple behind me say, "Excuse me, can we ask you some questions? We're thinking about moving here from San Diego." And so we said, "Sure, we'd be happy to answer any questions." So we're talking, and she said, "Well, I like it here in Prescott. It's beautiful, and the houses are less expensive, and the taxes are lower, and it's very pretty. But there's just really one thing that really bothers me about Prescott." And we said, "Well, what's that?" She said, "There are too many Republicans here." Okay, and so we say, "Well, then you haven't connected the dots yet. Like, you don't understand why California is as bad as it is." Like I was on the Republican committee for my county in the Bay Area, and we elected one Republican to the state legislature. She was the first Republican elected to the state legislature from the Bay Area in more than 10 years. It's a single-party state. Right now, they have a bill in the Assembly to pay reparations to black people. They're targeting 2023. They have a number of new taxes. The highest income tax in Arizona is 4.5%. It's 13.8% in California, and they want to raise it 3.5% more. Everything they do, they're having wildfires and blackouts right now. Like, I think the three most important positions on the ballot, in a way, are the three for the Corporation Commission. We don't get the Corporation Commission and keep control of it. We'll get the Green New Deal. We'll get a cap and trade program. So in California, electricity is 19 cents per kilowatt hour. It's 11 cents per kilowatt hour here in Arizona. We'll see that go right through the roof. And we'll end up with the same blackouts that California's having. But they want to come here. Do you guys know the Indivisibles? The group, the Indivisibles? Okay. Prescott has a group of Indivisibles. Indivisibles are a nationwide group. It's the Trump resistance. And so we have an Indivisible group in Prescott. And last weekend, they had a Black Lives Matter. One of the founders of the Black Lives Matter teaches at Prescott College. Okay, she teaches from LA, Patricia Kohlers. If you go to the Prescott College website, it looks like a Black Lives Matter website. They truly believe they can take over Arizona. And that will be the darkest day that you will have here in Arizona. So besides on a national level, this being important, on a statewide level, what bothers me about the Republican Party, well, first of all, that we don't fight that much. Secondly, is we break into too many splinter groups. There's 10,000 Republican groups, okay? And so we don't fight together for the same things. So we got to get better at doing that.
And the Democrats.
Oh, the Democrat gets in trouble, they circle the wagons and they protect that person.
You'd be a pedophile. I know.
Right, right. A Republican gets in trouble, it's the Republicans who throw gasoline on the fire, okay? So we just don't know how to take care of ourselves.
Okay, Jim has a hand, but I'm going to go first. You said you belong to a tax group, and when I was in California, I was under Prop 13, Prop 23, Prop 13. So all the time that we owned our house, we were paying less than most of our neighbors that bought after us.
Right.
And that was an absolute godsend. The people that bought our house when we sold in 2005, and it went to regular taxes, paid 4 to 5 times what we had been paying for the exact same house, because we were there for 30 years. Is that what group you were with?
Yeah. Well, so the average house in the Bay Area now sells for more than $1 million. Okay, there's your first problem right there. The property tax rate in California is the same as most other states. But because the price of housing is so high, like my property taxes here are 1/3 what they were in California. Okay, I mean, it's like gift every month that keeps on giving, you know. So, but they really want to change that. They,
It's on the ballot this year.
yes, yes, yeah. So, again, if they take over the state, you'll see, it just like we have a Democratic Secretary of Education, and you know, if you saw what they teach first graders in California, you would be shocked. Shocked, horrified. And that's what they want to come here.
How did she get elected here?
I don't know.
He. Is it a he or
No,
she?
she.
Katie Hobbs.
Katie Hobbs, it's a she. And we've had several fights with her already where we've actually won a couple things and kept her from doing some things. But it's going to be a fight, you know, every election now.
38 wouldn't dissolve.
38?
38 wouldn't dissolve.
8:30.
Oh,
It might come to
9 millimeter actually would probably be better, but that's okay, you know.
You're Jim,
Yeah.
Dan.
Just a comment and then a question for you, but, you know, I just feel like we've had 3 generations of kids that have been raised or educated in our educational system to be these secular progressive people. A lot of teachers are out there, and this is the mindset that they want these kids to have. And it just keeps going on.
Right.
And, you know, when, in a Christian education, you're taught that the biggest battle that you have in life is your own sinful nature.
Right.
I have to fight Jim Ferris all the time. You know, that's my biggest battle. These kids are raised that their biggest battle they're going to have to fight is all the isms. Whether it be racism, is they got to fight that, environmentalism, sexism, you know, the homophobia, whatever it is. And that's what they go out, and that's their religion. They have nothing else.
Right.
And so, to me, I'm not very optimistic about where we're going and that we can turn this tide.
Right.
As long as they just keep churning out
Right.
these little monsters.
Right.
And
Right.
so, how do you feel? Do you have any optimism at all that we can turn it around?
Not much. Not much. And you know, actually, I don't know why I thought that when you were saying that. I thought about an incident with the NAACP, and I would go back to that for a second. And so when I joined the NAACP, I ended up going to all their board meetings for my local NAACP. And frankly, the NAACP is not that very powerful. We think they're really powerful, so we give them their power because we think they're very powerful. So when I would go to board meetings, most of the board, there were 9 people on the board, and 8 of them were very nice to me. I mean, we got along really well. There was one woman who never said my name. She called me the white MF at the other end of the table. Tell the white MF at the end of the table to give me that packet of material. And I kind of think of that as the way things are. We have a lot of good black people that are good, some that are bad, some that hate us. We see, and they perpetuate that. You know, I was at an NAACP meeting where the head of the California NAACP was telling them that they had to support the LGBT community. They had to support the LGBT. And I was sitting at a table with 2 black ministers who were going, not in my church, not happening in my church. My parishioners will throw me out of the church if I try to do this. So the NAACP is not as powerful as we let it be, and we let it be all the time. They had a guy in our county, Willie Mims was his name, and every time a black kid got in trouble, the NAACP would send Willie Mims. And he would come in, he would be the meanest, toughest guy you've ever met in your life. But if you knew Willie Mims one-on-one, he was a really nice guy and a former teacher. And he was tough on kids when he taught. We don't get close enough to these people to know how to fight them and how to win that battle and how to bring them to our side. And I think a lot of them will come to our side. I think Trump is actually bringing more of them to our side, actually. But the kids in schools, the curriculum is so bad. and the teachers are, you know, my wife's a retired first grade school teacher, so her teacher education was how you teach reading, how you teach math, how you teach those things. Teacher education now is, you know, what is racism, what is, you know, all the different civil rights things. They don't even know actually how to teach reading and math anymore. And so that's getting worse and worse. But they spend all of their time on, you know, race relations and how, you know, racist the country is. So I don't know how we turn that around.
It's self-esteem over self-discipline.
Right.
All those.
So how do we get rid of the ethnic study programs in the colleges? I mean, how do we get rid of some, or how do we, California has a new curriculum for ethnic studies that they're trying to approve now and bring to the curriculum, and it's all victims. It's all the racial hatred that you see now. So how do we turn that around? I really don't know.
Isn't the Department of Education starting to defund these commies?
Well, they're trying to. I mean, and of course, Betsy DeVos is one of the people that's hated by every left-wing group in the country. And I mean, I give her all the credit in the world for still being in office. I mean, it's probably been hell for her. Just like I can't imagine being Donald Trump and getting up every day and fighting the Mueller investigating and fighting the Russia, and fighting this and that, and doing what he's doing.
He loves it.
I'm sure, yeah, he probably does.
We have Don here with a question.
No, actually, I just want to make the comment about the reaction you get when you fight against liberal ideas. The thing I think was Jimmy Stewart, an actor who was also a bomber pilot during World War II, who said something like, when the clock is thick enough to walk on, you know you're over the target.
Right.
And that's as far as I'm concerned, that's a compliment. Rules for Radicals, Solinsky, I think it was, it might have been Bill Myers, was talking about the purpose of the Communist Party, the Marxism. Just like we had recently a big initiative on raising the minimum wage. The purpose of that was not to make the people who were on a minimum wage earn more money. The purpose of that was to destroy small businesses because it advances the communist agenda, because now government can say, well, if you need subsidies, we'll give you subsidies if you toe the party line. If you oppose the party, we'll let you'll be destroyed.
So I'm going to give you another reason why we have a minimum wage. The minimum wage law was passed during the Jim Crow era, and it was passed because white contractors in the North were going to the South and bringing truckloads of black workers back that would work for practically nothing. And so the minimum wage laws were passed to keep blacks out of the labor force in the country.
Bacon Davis Act?
I think that's it, yeah. So, I mean, there was a law passed shortly after the NAACP was formed. People who donated to the NAACP were either killed or harmed. Congress passed a law that made it possible for people to make anonymous donations to the NAACP. Today, and that was good for Republicans then. Now it's Democrats who want everybody to have to be identified who gives money to any kind of nonprofit group. So, you know, things have changed.
Okay, anybody else? Well, I want to remind everybody that Dawn back here videotapes this. And I want to refer people to watch the video of the presentation, because I think everybody needs to hear it. And so it usually takes you how long to get it on YouTube? How long does it take you to get a program on YouTube?
Oh, this one will probably be up maybe 9, 10 o'clock tonight.
Oh, so 10 o'clock
Unless I run into a
tonight.
problem, then it'll be first
You
thing
go
tomorrow.
to Don Klein's YouTube channel,
Just Don Klein channel on YouTube.
Don Klein channel on YouTube. Google it.
You know what?
DONCLINE. channel on YouTube. And he has Kim Horn that we had 2 weeks ago, and he has, you know, everything he videotapes, he puts on the YouTube. And so, did you get the slides on it too? The slides?
No, I've got them on the
If
video.
anybody wants the slides, I'd be happy to send them to them.
Yeah, I would like the slides.
Okay.
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 But anyhow, he usually gets the slides and put the slides up also.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
If I know I'm going to do that, then I would videotape him and put the slides in where appropriate. But
Yeah,
since I didn't know that, the whole video tonight is the slides.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
Right.
for everybody's information, I have 12 videos on what's going on in our country right now and why, if
Okay.
you want to
And
watch
I
that.
watched the first one. It was 13 minutes. And it's Perry, his wife, down at, by the gazebo, by the park with the, you know, Green Valley Park. And that's the first one. She reads the script and stuff. Because you may have noticed Don's getting a little bit weaker voice for long-term talking. The other ones, he says, are about 3 to 4 minutes each.
About 4 to 6 minutes.
4 to 6 minutes each. So there's a whole series. So I'm going to be putting them on, I Facebook the first one, and then we'll probably put them on the website and stuff like that. So, because you know, he does his research, that's for sure, as Hal. So, thank you, Hal, very much.